Do you believe you're a good person? And what if, suddenly, you were placed in a situation where doing harm wasn't just allowed but encouraged? On a dark night in 1971, a group of young college students gathered in a secret location. They had no idea what awaited them, but they were about to take part in an experiment that would change their lives forever. Professor Philip Zimbardo, renowned psychologist from Stanford University, had carefully selected 24 participants for his study. All of them were young, healthy, emotionally stable, and had no criminal background. They represented what society would consider good people. But what would happen if these good people were placed in an extreme situation? That was the question Zimbardo wanted to answer. The students were randomly divided into two groups, guards and prisoners. No one knew which role they would play until the last moment. The setting, a simulated prison in the basement of the university. The lights turned on, revealing makeshift cells and narrow hallways. The prisoners were handcuffed and led inside, while the guards were given uniforms and minimal instructions about their roles. In the first few days, the atmosphere was tense but controlled. The guards carried out their duties with hesitation, while the prisoners tried to adapt to the new reality. But gradually, something began to change. The guards, initially unsure, began to embrace their roles with a disturbing enthusiasm. Simple orders turned into elaborate humiliations. The power they were given seemed intoxicating. On the other side of the bars, the prisoners reacted in different ways. Some rebelled, others resigned themselves. The atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive with each passing hour. Zimbardo watched everything closely, both fascinated and horrified by what he saw. How could normal people transform so quickly? What made ordinary individuals embrace cruelty so as the days went by, the situation deteriorated rapidly. The guards became more aggressive, and the prisoners more submissive. The experiment, planned to last 2 weeks, had to be stopped after only 6 days. When the lights came on and reality returned, everyone involved was shocked by their own actions. How could they behave that way? What led them to cross boundaries they never imagined they would? The Stanford prison experiment, as it became known, raised profound questions about human nature. It showed that, under certain circumstances, ordinary people can commit terrible acts. But why? What makes good people do evil things? One of the explanations proposed by Zimbardo is the theory of when people feel anonymous or part of a group, they tend to lose their individual identity. This can lead to behaviors that would normally be unacceptable. In the experiment, the guards wore uniforms and dark sunglasses, hiding their identities. This may have contributed to them feeling less responsible for their actions. Another important factor is group pressure. When we see others behaving a certain way, we tend to follow their example even if it goes against our personal values. In the simulated prison environment, the more aggressive guards quickly set a behavioral standard that the others followed. Obedience to authority also plays a crucial role. Previous studies, such as the famous Milgram experiment, had already demonstrated how people tend to obey authority figures, even when it means causing harm to others. In the case of the Stanford prison experiment, the guards received little guidance, but held the implicit authority of their position. This may have led some to interpret that they had free rein to act as they pleased. The power of the situation is another key element. Zimbardo argues that, under certain circumstances, situational forces can override individual dispositions. In other words, the environment can shape our behavior more than we'd like to admit. The simulated prison created an artificial environment of power and submission. The roles assigned to the participants quickly became their realities, deeply influencing their actions and attitudes. But does that mean we are all evil by nature, just waiting for the opportunity to reveal our true face? Not necessarily. The experiment also showed examples of resistance and compassion. Some guards refused to take part in cruel acts, while some prisoners offered emotional support to their fellow inmates. What can we learn from all this? First and foremost, the importance of constant vigilance. We must always be aware of situations that may lead us to act against our values. Secondly, the need for systems of control and accountability. In environments where there is a power imbalance, it is crucial to have mechanisms that prevent abuse. Finally, the importance of empathy and human connection. When we see others as individuals, with their own stories and feelings, it becomes harder to treat them in an inhuman way. The Stanford prison experiment reminds us that the line between good and evil can be thinner than we'd like to believe. But it also shows us that we have the power to choose. We can choose to resist peer pressure, question unjust orders, and maintain our humanity even in the toughest situations. We can choose to be the light in the darkness instead of succumbing to the shadows. The question, why do good people do evil, has no simple answer. It reflects the complexity of human nature, the social forces that shape us, and the choices we make every day. The legacy of the Stanford prison experiment is not just a warning about the dangers of unchecked power. It is also a call to action, a reminder that each of us has the responsibility to fight against injustice and cruelty wherever we find it. If you were in Abu Ghraib or in the Stanford basement, would you obey or would you confront? If this video made you reflect, subscribe to the channel for more real stories about the dark sides of human behavior, and comment below. Would you have the courage to be the dissenting voice, or would you follow the group?